Hey folks, welcome to Snowpal Podcast. Our guest today is Surya Nagarajan. I've known Surya for a long time. Actually, we go back a long way. But the first time I'm actually I have the opportunity to collaborate with Surya on a podcast. I'm going to give a quick intro, but before that, thank you very much, Surya, for taking the time to chat today.
You're welcome, Krish.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to give a really sort of a quick intro, and then I'll let you introduce yourself, what you do, and a little bit about you to the audience. So Surya is a leader in AI and data analytics in a product company in the financial services industry. With that said, I'm just going to let Surya introduce himself. Right, Surya, go for it.
Thanks, Krish. So my name is Suri Nagarajan. I work as a leader in AI and data analytics. So I lead a larger team within my organization across the globe for building analytics products for a product company in financial services. So that's what I do. And as part of my passion, I also wanted to continue my education. So I'm also doing my second master's currently and very close to finishing that from Georgia Tech. So that's what I do.
Amazing. By the way, congratulations in advance for the Masters. That's a good point for us to start the conversation, right? When we met recently, you told me, and I was not surprised because I always thought of Surya as somebody who would actually be eager to learn. Now, back in college, if you don't mind sharing, what's the gap? The last time you got out of college and now you've gotten into college, are we talking close to how many years now?
So around 20 years. So last time I did my went to college was for my MBA at George Washington. I finished in 2005. It's close to 20 years since I started my next master's, and it's I won't say it's an easy journey, but once you get in the groove, it's much easier.
I'm not even going to say it's anywhere close to being easy, but let's talk a little bit about that, Surya. So by the way, what is the master's in?
So I'm doing my master's in analytics. So it's a combination of data science, machine learning, and also AI. So it's a combination of both. So there are multiple tracks. So one for business analytics, AI in particular, and then tools. So there are three different tracks, and my goal is to graduate in all the three tracks.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to take a contrarian position here, right? Just to
Yeah.
for what it's worth, right? Maybe play the devil's advocate. Now, I've done a few podcasts recently where I've spoken about my thoughts about college education and what it means, right? And I'll give you a bit of context here. Now, I also went to college, right? It was years
Yep.
ago, but I did go to college for what it's worth. So people are thinking Krish probably didn't go to college. No, Krish did go to college. I spent a lot of time in college, right? A lot of time. Uh, and in hindsight, I've always thought about the many years I spent, and I ask myself if I actually should not have spent that many years in college, and if I would have been better off spending much shorter time in college. And each of us has our own reasons for that. But the question I want to ask you, Surya, is, in today's day and age, right? If you take somebody who's in high school today and is going to college in the US, college education in America is exorbitant, right? It's super
Yes,
expensive, super
that's true. Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
And if you just do a quick Google search or look at one of those, videos on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, there's no dearth of students who talk about the college debt that they carry, right?
That's
Now,
true.
before I come to Surya going back to college, I also want to talk about just to get my understanding on what do you think about college education. Now, I want you to answer this in two parts if you could, right? If you don't mind.
Yeah.
One is as somebody who's decided to go back to college because you didn't have to, but you chose to, right? That's one thing. But I also want you to answer this if you can, as somebody who's kind of getting out of high school and organically wants to get into college. Right? That's just a natural progression of things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So people taking on debt, sometimes ending up in diplomas and degrees that probably they don't really need to have because
Mhm.
more and more companies are probably not even asking for these college degrees. I'm not saying all of them.
That's true.
There's a lot of positions at Meta and these hyperscalers where you don't necessarily need a college degree. And if
Mhm.
I take the part of the world where the two of us come from, Zoho is one of the largest companies back in India, right? In southern India. And I love the founder for many reasons. And one of the reasons is because his name is Sridhar Vembu, right? And he hires
Yeah.
people out of high school and they don't go to college, right? They are
Mhm.
in a remote part of Tamil Nadu and they're able to make a living. So
That's true.
all of that is just opinion, right? Krish's
Yeah.
opinion based on his learnings. I want to get started there, Surya. I want to get your thoughts. Two parts again. One is as you going back to college, what are your opinions there? Why did you want to
Yeah.
do that? And as somebody who's going to go into college, what do you think it's a good decision for them to do that?
Sure, definitely. Yeah, that's a good question. So first, coming to the reason began why I went to college is so I've been in AI. I've been working with my team building machine learning models and working with AI for years now. So of course, the AI is in the last 2 3 years is where it became famous. Before that's all machine learning models. So we do a lot of analytics. We build analytical models, predictive models, and prescriptive models. Um, One thing that I always felt even when working on models is I know a lot of people can build models, but I always felt that there is something lacking in me in terms of understanding why some of the models work and or don't work. And there's also a lot more. I started off doing analytic models just by going to website, learning through like YouTube videos and other videos online. It gave a good fundamental, or at least understanding of how to model. But I always thought that I had to understand more on why models work or how the underlying math that works. So that my passion is about the math behind all these different models. So that's why I decided to go to college because I think that's where you get the true knowledge. And I'm really glad I did because some of the classes that I've been taking at Georgia Tech and the professors are like, really, they know what they are talking about. And the interactions that I get and the knowledge that they provide in each of these classes is just amazing. I have, so one of the professors was telling, anyone can create models, but understanding the model and understanding why some models work and what is the right way to model, definitely I think I learned that from college, and I've been implementing those learnings in at work, and we have seen huge improvement in our analytic output. So definitely that's it's a really great thing that I did. And the knowledge that you get from even interacting with your other students, with the professors, with the TAs, it's huge. You cannot get that in any of the online learning platform. It's impossible to get that. It makes a huge difference. So that's the reason why I went back to college. And you touched on the college debt too. So that's some one thing that I mean, I've been thinking about this for the last 10 years. One of the main issue that I didn't take that leap was because of the amount of fees some of these colleges have been charging. So I have my dream college was in the West Coast, who's going. It's going to cost close to $100,000 to do my masters.
So you're
But I
talking about
saw
Stanford, Surya?
I was looking at Berkeley. UC Berkeley
Oh,
was
you see Berkeley.
the
Okay.
my dream college for my masters. It's close to like $100,000 to for the masters that I wanted to do in analytics. But I just saw an opportunity at Georgia Tech where it's a lot cheaper. It was very affordable, and also the classes there are great. The professors there and they are one of the premier institutes too. They're no way less than these California colleges. So, but so the experience that I get from this very premium college is really amazing. So
Okay,
that's the
no.
main reason. Yeah. So going back to why when kids graduate from high school should go to college is the experience that you get there is it's totally different from high school. I mean, people learn coding, they can do coding, they can do a really, like if you give them a task, okay, this is what I want you to build, they can go and build it. But the what college teaches is it's a lot more. I think the knowledge enrichment that you get from college, and the experience that you get, because you get to interact with multiple organizations in terms of like when you get internship, you try to learn with the professionals there, and even some of the projects or research projects that you do within college, where there are a lot of colleges which do interact with the industry to build projects. I think that is also one of the main enrichment that you can get from college, that you cannot, once you, if you decide to, like after you graduate from high school, you decide to go to work. And that's not, I don't think I mean, you can learn things from online platform and then just do what you're asked to do. But I think the broader view that you can get from industry interaction and then working on research projects and the amount of the breadth of the subjects that you learn. You're not just focused on, let's say, if you're a Java programmer, you just focus on coding, doing Java code. But if you go to college, that you are exposed to many other industries. For example, you can think of I mean, you have opportunities to work in financial services. You can work in capital markets, and the industry exposure is a lot more, and that will help you decide what you want to be in the future, not just being a coder. So I think bachelor's is great, but I think master's is a must. I mean, based on what I have learned, the amount of knowledge and enrichment that you get in a master's program is just amazing. I did my MBA, I did my MS. I'm glad I did both these courses because of how much I learned from these master's programs.
Those are amazing answers. I can say the eagerness to do it comes across through the video. I can tell that somebody like you probably was a good student 20 years ago, and I'm pretty certain a good student today as well. So I think for folks, for what it's worth, I think the way I would summarize it is, if you feel truly passionate about what you want to be doing, right? Not just doing college, because, at least I can speak to some of my experience, right? Back when I went to college in India, and correct me if I'm wrong, Suri, it's generally a cultural thing where nobody even asks you what you want to do after high school. It's a natural thing, right? You just file 25 different applications and you get into a college, right? Because getting a college degree is a natural next thing. Because if you don't get that, you're behind everybody else who also has a college degree. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of the beast, right? In that process, sometimes you lose track of what you're truly interested in. But true. America is a slightly different world, at least for the most part, where people can make some choices. Mm-hmm. Hey, what, do I want to go to college? Or if I want to go to college at this point of time, or perhaps a little bit later, maybe I want to save up some money. So I think I agree, right? So I think college, it's not just the academic learning. What you're saying is the experience of spending the 4 years there, collaborating with people who know more than you and people you know just as much as you, like other students, is probably a collectively rich experience. And as to what the borrowing is, that is something we have to talk financials, right? Let's go there in a second. But I think that's fair enough, right? So let me get to the next thing that I want to ask you there. One is, the next item is continuous learning, right? In other words, I'm not saying this is true of all industries, but I think in software engineering, I cannot remember a time where you could learn something and just forget about learning, right? It just doesn't happen that way, right? Things always change.
Yeah.
What has changed in the last year or two, in my opinion, is AI has sort of expedited the changes, right? The rate at which these changes are happening is a lot faster than changes that happened previously. That's not to say that things did not change in engineering, right? In software engineering, things were always in a state of flux. JavaScript libraries changed every 3 weeks, so you have to pick one up, or a next version of the same one or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
In terms of continuous learning, let's say you're going to college now, you're learning, we'll come to those models, and I'm very curious to learn a bit more about that. But let's say you're learning all of this and you're putting that to work, right? So there is a learning process, whether you're learning at school formally or informally on YouTube or from other people. So for the purpose of what I'm asking next, it doesn't matter. But you have a certain element of learning and you apply that to work and you keep that learning going. I want to ask you a couple of things when it comes to continuous learning. First is, what keeps you motivated? I mean, after a certain point, it's like having the first, I'm going to quote an Indian sweet here, right? Gulab jamun, right? If people haven't tried it, they should try it. It's like this ball. It's got all kinds of fat. I think it's deep fried and dipped in lots of sugar, but it's very tasty, right? But you eat one of it, you're all right. You eat two of it, it's difficult. And after the second one, you can't do it anymore because it's just too sweet, right? It's too much, as good as it is. It may not be the best example. I want to take that example to learning. Does there come a point where you're like, you know what? I'm actually tired of learning. Or if you're not tired of learning, what keeps you motivated?
I think one thing I would say is, I would see two kinds of people generally at work or even in a daily life. One set of people is just ask me, tell me what you want to do, I will get it done. And it's just work is just a 9 to 5 thing, and just want to get this done, get my paycheck, and then I go home and be happy. And then I see another group of people where
that sounds like Gen Z. I don't want to interrupt you there. I was going to say that sounds like Gen Z to me. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
And other set of people I see is there's an urge to achieve something, like build something, or even I would say by achievement I say, I mean, they want to do something different, and whatever they have built so far, they're not happy with what they built. They were also looking for what is next, what is next, what is something I can challenge myself, I can do something better than what I already did. So that's another set of people that I see. I think I fall into the second category. So I started my career as a mainframes programmer, and then I moved on to data architecture, and then I moved on to machine learning, and now I'm with AI, mostly dealing with AI. So I think my thing was always I'm looking for next challenge, and anything that is coming new in the IT industry, I want to embrace it. So one thing that I always feel that people are scared or worried when something new comes up, but I feel that that's exciting, and I want to actually learn and embrace it and then move on using it. So I think that is what been motivating me to do my masters too. So I've been I really regret that I have a 20 years gap of learning. I feel like right now I feel I have wasted a lot of my life in that 20 years. I should have learned more, because my ultimate goal is to do a PhD, and at this age I think it's going to be cutting close. So, but I wish I have done this before.
No,
Uh,
I,
but
I
uh,
have no doubts. The next time I talk to you, you're going to be enrolled in PhD, and 4 years down the road, you're going to have a PhD. We're going to call you Dr. Nagarajan at that point. I have few doubts there, right? But I think
yeah,
you said something there that I very much agree with, which is,
yes,
uh, you are excited to learn the next thing, and rather than be anxious about what's changing, you're actually curious and excited about what's changing. And
yes,
I've said the exact same thing, Surya, in many different ways in a lot of the recent podcasts, because
yeah,
if all of this that's happening right now in the space of AI,
yeah,
if it happened 20 years or 25 years down the road, I would have sat out because I would have retired
mm,
by then, maybe,
that's
right?
true.
And then
Yeah,
you're looking, just watching what's happening.
yeah,
It's almost like you're watching the clouds pass you by. I
yeah,
think we've got to be blessed that it's happening today, right? If
exactly. Yeah,
anything, if it had happened 10 years ago, it would have been even nicer,
yeah,
but better late than never, right? So I think it's
yeah,
it's good. But what I want to ask also is motivation, right? Let's talk about it
yes,
for a couple of minutes more.
yeah,
What is the motivator? Is it money? Is it a title? Is it growth? Is it progression? Is it monetary? Is it tangible things? Is it intangible things? It could be a combination of a variety of things, right? If you have to pick two things as the top two motivators,
mhm,
and the answer could be as simple as dollars and dollars, perfectly acceptable answer, right? But I
yeah.
want to know what your answer is. What are the two top motivators?
First is the reward that you get from challenging yourself, the happiness or the sense of achievement that you get. I think that's the I think that drives me the most. And of course, along with it, reward is not just saying, "Hey, you did a good job." That's not just a reward. So money also comes with it. So I feel like I need to continuously grow, and I'm not happy with. I'm okay with what I'm doing now, but what is my next step? How do I grow? So with growth comes the money, and also the title, and where you can climb up the ladder. So I think for that we have to do what is the trending in the industry, because once even for example, let's say the machine learning models, once it became famous, there's a lot of people coming into the industry with machine learning model experience, and then it gets saturated. So I won't want to be in a marketplace where the skill is saturated. I want to be in a skill set where it's new, where there's a lot of growth opportunities, so we can be a pioneer, and not be someone one in like a million. Yeah, I want to be someone like one in let's say 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000, where I can be in the leading edge of the technology. So I think and the challenge that comes with it. I mean, there's a general notion that it's tough to keep up with the new technologies, but what if we are able to, right? So that's the reward that you get. That's the main driver, I would say.
I'll give you an example here, right? Clint Eastwood is one of my
Mhm.
most favorite creators of all time, right? I was just trying to call him my director. But Clint Eastwood is a producer, he's a director, he's a composer. I remember vaguely where I believe it was Bruce Springsteen when he went to accept the Oscars. Clint Eastwood was in the same category for music composition, right? For background score, original score, I think at the time. And if memory serves me right, Bruce Springsteen goes up on stage and says, the Kodak Theater, I think in LA, right? He says, if there's one category I can expect to be in with Clint Eastwood and win, perhaps it's this one or something along those lines, to just speak volumes about the magnitude of skills that someone like Clint Eastwood has, right? I'm like a huge fan, right? I go back and watch, I think the most recent Clint Eastwood movie I watched was one he made like 50 years ago, like 2 weeks ago, right? I go back and watch them all the time. And I take him as one of the examples because I think the most recent movie he hasn't made one in the last 3 years, if I'm not wrong. The last one he made was probably when he was like 91 or something like that, right? Now, my dad watched him 50 years ago, right? Back in smaller rural, remote parts of like Tamil Nadu, right? Back in India. It's incredible that someone can make a movie that was in tune with the times 50 years ago or 60 years ago maybe, and can still create content, right? Rich movies, Hollywood cinema. Now, is Clint Eastwood doing it for the money? Of course not. No. Is he doing it for the fame? Heck no, right? He's got all of that fame, right? And I can take a lot of other examples like this. A lot of the people, right? Let's take Robert De Niro, DiCaprio. I'm just taking Hollywood because I'm fascinated by them. But these are people who've got more than their share of wealth and fame and whatnot, right? So there's got to be something else that motivates people, right? Because money surely is a motivator, but cannot be the sole motivator, because sometimes there's many ways to make money, and I can speak to it in some form or shape because but this podcast is not about me, so I won't take that example. But I'm just saying there's many easy ways to make money, right? There are a few easy ways to make money, but some of us don't look for the easiest way to make money, right? We look for the way that we enjoy making money. And the first thing you said there was that you feel satisfied, right? You feel happy about what you're learning. And it's followed by money. So before we end this segment, Suri, I want to ask you. So the first motivator for you is not necessarily what it's going to pay you, right? The first motivator is sort of challenging yourself, asking yourself, hey, can I do this? It seems very difficult or not. I want to be able to do this. And when you do it, you have a sense of accomplishment because you were able to get that stuff done. Is that, am I reasonably summarizing that as the motivator?
That is correct. Yeah. So when like majority of people think that it's are scared of something that's new coming up, that's where I say, why should we be scared? Like I have seen what in the, if you like go back in the last 20, 30 years, I've been in the IT industry. Every time there's a disruptive change, there's a people are scared, and there's majority of people, I'm saying not everyone, are scared of what the change is. But the change always, there has been some basic structure changes in organization. Some organizations go down who are like famous, and then some new ones come up. But there's always been a change in how people work on what people work on. So what I have learned is, yes, those changes going to be scary. We don't know what the future holds, but at the end, when you reach the end of that tunnel, I would say there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Things have changed for better. That's what I've seen in the last 30 years. So that gives me motivation to say, why can't we embrace this change? Be a pioneer in this change, and then be successful, and that will also fetch us the satisfaction of accomplishment, right? So that's that's what I think is the sweet reward, I would say, the best thing that can happen, where we are like, it's like, I would say, if you go back to the old days where the kings, they lived to conquer and then expand the territory. That's how I feel like it's conquering our fear, conquering the newer technology that's coming our way, and the victory is the sweet reward that we get.
Amazing, like beautifully said. So that leads us to our next topic, which is Venezuela. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No, not yet. Not yet. Maybe we'll talk about it, but no. Okay, the next line item is going to be AI. I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of people in the last 12 months. And
Yeah.
as a startup ourselves, we are embarking on a journey to doing our next bit of work fairly differently from everything we've done in the past, right? So we're building a fintech API. And for that fintech API, our architecture is going to look significantly different because of everything that's transpired in the space of AI. Now, I want to ask you a few different things about AI.
Yeah.
You've already alluded to some where you're learning it formally, but maybe we can start there. Maybe I had a few things here, but maybe we can start there. You talked about models, right? And you talked about the math. Now, I'm going to talk about this at a 30,000 foot level, and then we'll see how much deeper we can get it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about training and inference, Surya. But before we go there, you talked about math and models, right? So if I took AI at a higher level in a software company, a while ago I did a podcast that was almost like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, or maybe even much longer before then. I want to see what roles might be meaningful in the space of AI and engineering, given all the everything that transpired in the industry, right? So, let's say if I took 2 years ago when you created a team to build software, it was a very typical composition to speak, so to speak, right? I mean, I'm just going to throw this out, right? You have a sprint team, maybe you have few developers, you have a tester, maybe you have a tester that's shared across many sprint teams, and maybe you have a part-time project manager that manages multiple teams. Maybe you have a DevOps engineer or a SecOps engineer that are shared resources between a few teams, right? So, and there's a product manager, maybe it's full-time in that team, or otherwise, there's a variety of there's few permutations and combinations, but you didn't have AI roles in that team necessarily, right? But now, before I go to the question related to math, I want to ask you how do you see the composition of a typical software engineering team change from like a year ago? Like, what was it a year ago in your opinion, Surya? And for the exact same team, what would those roles look like today, and what are those differences?
Yeah. We have been adopting AI in our development process. So what I would say is 2 years back, AI is all about just plain interaction where we use prompts to get our answers. It's more like a glorified Google search. There have been talks in industry where prompt engineering is something that's going to be something the future. But I don't see just prompt engineering as what the future is. It's more of we need developers because I think in the world of AI we are trying to move like ahead of what just using it as a glorified Google search. It's not just interacting with like a chat interaction with the with AI anymore. It's now we are moving. We are in a phase where we are trying to implement AI as an agent. Now they are like agentic AI, and now with the invent of MCP servers and all those. So it's more about how do we build products using AI. So for that we need a very good development team who understands AI and also understand the business side of it. I would say the change that has happened in the last few years is we want to implement agents as core developers. I won't say it's going to replace developers. I don't want to scare anyone that it's going to replace developers. It's just that it gives more resources to the for a company, mainly for development shops, where there could be small bug fixes and things like that that can be taken over by agents, and then human can start building more innovative features for the product. So they can and then they can hand off some of the more repetitive tasks. For example, you said brought up DevOps and things like that, where there are like repetitive building of infrastructure code that can be handled by agents. Whereas then you can use those resources to expand what the company can offer in terms of products and innovation. Because we definitely need developers to think and then interact with AI to build agents. So that's where I think we are going today. So I would say don't think of AI as just something that we prompt and get answers. And the AI has now moved to building innovative products. For example, we have built a lot of agents that can create features within the products, right?
Okay.
For that, we still need developers who understand how AI works, and also the business knowledge of what is the existing product business knowledge. For example, let's say you mentioned you're trying to build APIs. The world is moving towards MCP servers. So now, how do we um, uh, uh, take those APIs and make into enable MCP server on top of this API, so that that can be agent. So the agents in my product can talk to agent in another product, for example, Salesforce or Workday.
So
It's going to
Surya,
be more of a
no, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's almost like you look through our product management documentation because we are actually currently
yeah,
actually researching that phase. We have 8 different
yes,
APIs and we are trying to add an MCP tier on top of it, right? But let me interrupt
yes,
you because I want to
yeah,
pull you back to, I'll give you an
yeah,
example, right? I want
yep,
an answer that's specific to this part of my question, which is,
yeah,
let's say I had a team with 3 developers, and it's hypothetical, right?
yeah,
One shared tester across multiple teams, one shared product manager, and maybe one shared DevOps engineer, right? Let's take that
yes,
as a simple enough team, and a project
yeah,
manager that's
okay,
shared as well.
yeah,
If I had to do the same type of things today, right, with
mm,
AI tools and creating agents and whatnot, making a bunch of assumptions, Surya, I want to know what the current team's composition might look like. What are some roles? If you have to staff a new team,
mhm.
how would you staff that team today? Right? What are some new roles that will come into play? And what are some existing roles that might not be in the team anymore?
I would say if for example, a typical team might have like a project manager, like a mid-tier or UI developers, and then we have testers and DevOps engineers. So I think the line between DevOps and the developers is going to merge. I don't see much of like a project management role itself going to be merged into other roles. But because now with AI being enabled, I think it's not like a it's going to be DevOps is not going to be a very specialized skill in terms of like building infrastructure as a code. Now I think AI can do that. So all it needs is the mid-tier developers or can now say what they want to, what they envision as an infrastructure, and that can be built, like automation and coding can be done. So I would say um, the DevOps part can be merged. It doesn't mean it's going to be replaced, because we still need the same set of resources to be able to build more features. So I just want to uh, caution that it's not like it's a resource replacement. I would say, and another area where there's also a lot of AI adoption is in the testing side. So I would say a pure tester is not going to be like a feature going forward. Like you have UI testers and then people who do UAT regression testing. So that the testing part, I think, might be something that will be now taken over by developers. So I would say uh, the because the goal going forward is when people develop any new features or even the existing code. Now we are trying to build the test cases with using AI. So now the some of the tools can build test cases. It can do automation of test cases. So those are the two major areas where it's going to be merged. So it's mostly going to be developers in so that's what I envision the future of a team is going to be. I would say project manager and developers, and by developers they have the capability now to do the testing, automate the testing, and automate the DevOps piece of it.
Okay, great points, right? I'll add
Yeah,
a couple of things to that and I'll ask a follow-up question.
yeah,
In the last 5 years, Surya, whatever we've built at Snowpal, right? We
yeah,
built a project management web platform. We
mhm,
followed that up with a couple of mobile apps on the app and Play stores, right? We
yeah,
support like 80% of our features on the mobile device. We also published our APIs on AWS Marketplace, and they are available for licensing as well. And the most recent thing we did was we added an education platform to our mobile app and on the web, right? These are a bunch of things we did. And I can tell you that all of it was done. When you run a company, it's not just engineering, right? It's not just coding. There's a lot of facets to it. But believe it or not, and this is probably true for a lot of startups, I'm not sure, all of it was done by developers, right? Our UI was done by developers, our UX was done by developers, our testing was done by developers, our documentation was done by developers, our sales is done by developers, our marketing is done by developers, right? Now, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, is what they say, right? But as an engineering company, and as somebody who's a developer myself, that's just my natural inclination. I'm not saying the other roles are less important. I couldn't appreciate the importance of every role in a company.
Sure.
But I want to ask you this next question by prefacing it with whatever I just mentioned here. I'll give you one more context. I interviewed a founder in Sydney, right? Sydney or Adelaide, I don't remember, but somewhere in Australia. He mentioned that he had a team of about close to 50 people. In the last year or so, he was able to bring it down to under 10 people, right? With all support with AI tools and agents and this and that. The natural first question and my reaction was, well, did you have it overstaffed to begin with? If you're able to get rid of 80% of the people, did you have too many people to begin with, right? His natural, obvious answer at that time was, take it with a grain of salt, was no, we were not overstaffed, but we only need 10 people. Now, I've had other people tell me that that's a bit of an extreme, but regardless, if there are 1 million developers, if there were 1 million developers in 2025, Surya, how many developers do you think we need in 2027 to do the exact same number of things that they were doing in 2025?
Okay, so I would say that's based on what I have seen in the past. Like the reason, so to get back to the question of whether overstuffed. Today it might look like they have been overstaffed, but if you look 2 years back, I mean they have been everyone has been working on 100% capacity. The issue and also I would say what we gained by adopting AI is now, as I mentioned, AI is not just a glorified Google search anymore. There are like all the IDEs, IDE companies, and even the like specialized, for example, Cursor, for example, Kiro. So what they do is they are nothing but agents who act as a developer or like a co-developer, meaning the developer helper. So if you in case of like cutting down from 50 people to 10 people, it's just the productivity improvement of each of the developers that have reduced the need for the number of developers.
Correct, but that means we lost the need for the other 40, right? The tool does it. I don't deny that, but by virtue of the tool doing it, you're able to get the same things done, same number of things done by a lot lesser people. So do we agree that we don't need? So what would be the number? In other words, if I had to have you force the number out of you, just a ballpark number, what would the number be?
Okay, I'll give you two numbers. One is if, let's say, with the assumption that the industry, the whole industry is not like doing anything new and they just continue to do what they want to do. So if there is 1 million developers in 2025, in 2027 probably might be reduced by at least 40%. That's a very very conservative number, is 40%. It could be even more. But on the flip side, I always said that all this disruptive change has changed the industry totally, right? So now that the one of the issues of a new player entering into this market is the labor cost. Now that we have brought down the labor cost, there could be more opportunities in terms of even a smaller player can now start building products that are much bigger in scale than what they used to be. So I would say that the 40% reduction might not be just will be unemployed. There are other opportunities that's going to expand the opportunities is going to expand the market, that they will be absorbed in other places. Meaning people will build more products, will build more features, they will expand the offering. There'll be no more new players coming in because now that we have reduced the labor cost. So that's going to change. So there are two ways to look at it.
You know what,
So there are
Surya?
always opportunities.
It's a brilliant answer for two reasons. One is, I've always said something along those lines myself, but by hearing someone else say something similar, it brings more sanity to my thought process. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
It makes me
Yeah.
feel a bit more sane than
Yeah.
I might actually be, because I've exactly felt the same way, right? So I'm going to repeat what you said exactly, just in my own words. That's all, nothing new.
Yep.
I think the point we're trying to make it's a very crucial thing that you state here, which is two ways of looking at it. Is one is, hey, if you continue to do the exact same number of things, sure, you don't need half the people you have today, right? Fair enough. But that's not going to be the situation, right? If you have the same number of people, you can get a lot more things done. We all have a finite lifespan, correct?
That's true.
As someone who's done consulting for a number of years, right? I mean, to keep some of our lights on at the company, it always mesmerized me that there's two ways to look at consulting. I've actually had conversations with people who would stretch work, to fill the time available, because that was the model, right? The time and materials model was, hey, the longer I take to get this stuff done, the more I get paid. That never made sense to me as either at a personal level or a professional level, because you've got finite time on earth, right?
Yep.
So in the time, which nobody knows what the time is, how much do you want to get done? Do you want to get done with 30 things or with 300 things, right? It's nicer to get done with 300 things. Why would I hang on to a project and stretch that when I can actually do 7 other projects, right?
That's true.
So again, to each their own, but it never made sense to me, right? So what you're saying there is, you can now get more stuff done with fewer people at lower cost, right?
Yes.
Because you don't need as many people, right? So collectively, maybe you need enough people that you have today, or perhaps you need more people. I could not agree more. But there's two parts to it, right? Meta has, Zuckerberg has said more than once that he doesn't see the need for junior engineers anymore, right? He says, hey, you know what? I don't see the need. The agents can do it. But how do you have mid-level engineers if you don't ever have junior engineers? I don't know what, right? But the strategy could possibly be that maybe Mark doesn't want to hire junior engineers. The rest of the world can hire junior engineers. Once they become senior, maybe he's willing to hire them. That way he doesn't have to spend money on junior engineers, right? He can have agents do all of that work, potentially speaking. The second part of this, Surya, is we cannot necessarily assume that the number of people, 1 million developers, different demographics, different backgrounds, different skill sets, are going to keep up with the pace of learning to be able to fill those new roles that become available, correct? So maybe some percentage of those folks, unfortunately, will end up either getting laid off, or they get laid off and may never be able to find employment again in a scary scenario, to be replaced by a new set of people who have those skills to begin with, correct? So I want to get your thoughts on two parts, on the more difficult part of this, right? Let's say somebody's been building software for 20 years, right? That's the most difficult segment, if you ask me, and I'll tell you why. Gen Z that's entering the workforce has never built software any other way, correct? So they know they'll go learn how to use Cursor and all of these other AI-assisted tools, Copilot and whatnot, and do things the way they're supposed to be done, because that's where they're starting to learn. People who are close to Clint Eastwood's age probably are out of the workforce. So they are just watching what's going on, and they're not impacted by AI necessarily, right?
That's true.
But a lot of the people like us in the middle, we've done it a certain way for a long time, and we've got a long way to go before retirement, have to make a serious decision here, right? I mean, you're looking at it, right? It's like the Robert Frost poem, which is The Road Not Taken. You're going to have to make a decision here. How do you reckon that they should make the decision? I mean, one side is, you could say, you know what? Buck up, learn everything you can, enroll at Georgia Tech, do your master's, and then you'll be okay. But that's easier said than done. It takes a lot of motivation, a lot of commitment, a lot of passion. How do you give us an answer to the extent you can? To people who are extremely motivated, it's very easy, much easier. Can you speak to the ones that are not super motivated? And can you also talk to the ones who completely lack motivation and tell those people what they should do?
So I can. I see at my work too. So, for example, let's say we have hired like freshers from college as interns, and they know AI from the get go. And sometimes I just tell them, this is what I want to build, and I initially I felt that they don't have the understanding of what I want to build, but like after like 2 or 3 weeks, and they are able to build what I asked them to do using AI, and just blew my mind away. So they are already the colleges are now integrating AI into their learning, so they know from the get go. So it's more like it's their it becomes their second nature. But as you mentioned, the more senior people I see, they when it comes to like working with AI, they feel like with their ability and the speed at which they know the code. Like people who have been with the company for a longer time, they know the code in and out. They think that it's easier for them to go and make the change manually. By the time they do the prompting, they've done fixing the code. So that is what they are thinking. Their thinking is, I can do faster than AI. But it's not about that. It's about the world is moving towards AI. They have to I mean, how long can they like survive by saying, okay, I can do faster than AI, because it's
Because you
the
can't. I
way,
mean, the truth
yeah,
is you cannot do it. I mean, in other words, right? I saw a graphic from a while ago.
yeah,
I wish I could pull it up where, somebody is dragging a cart with broken
mhm,
wheels.
yeah,
And he's making a lot of effort, and someone else gives him a couple of new pair of wheels. And the guy goes, you know what? I'm all right. Don't stop me, right? So that's
yeah,
that's a good example to me. If some
that's true.
people can
Yeah,
imagine that,
yeah,
sometimes you have to break loose from the way you've done it, right?
that's
Muscle
true. Yeah,
memory is very detrimental to learning. You're going to keep doing
exactly,
things the
exactly.
same
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
So it's not true. So to those people who've done it a certain way, and like it or not, when you've
mhm.
done it for many years, you have this muscle memory, and sometimes you're adamant. I'm not saying this in a bad way, but that's just human brain works,
Yes,
right? You're
that's true. Yeah,
married to
yeah,
ways of the past.
yeah.
How do you propose that those people, is it left to the individual to be motivated, or what should the organization do to make sure that they are actually not dragging the rest of the team behind?
Yeah. So, what as an organization we have to embrace AI as the AI first initiative, where everyone must use AI. It's tough to force them. When you say I want to use AI, they just ask a couple of prompts and say I use AI. That's not what it is, right? So it's a total mentality shift in terms of how I'm going to do the coding in the future. So one thing that in it we cannot enforce them, but we have to also let them know gently that this is a change that's happening and it's here to stay. It's not like a hype that's going away in like a year or two. And if things on if AI or any change for that matter is not embraced, then they are going. It's just a matter of time before they are going to be like left behind in the scene. And by left behind, it can be they cannot. Uh, uh, Grow in the organization. The growth is going to come with what you can produce, and it's not. Yeah, and most of the products, even the products that we have today, may not be around in 5 years or 10 years, and there could be new products, new features that's coming up that we are going to sell. So it's not like so. Even if there is a possibility that they lose a job, what will they do in the next job? Because the expectation in the next job will be how do you work with AI? So that's something they have to understand, that the world is moving. So there are two options: either we jump on the bandwagon and go with it, or be left behind.
Very well said,
So
right? There's no
that's
sugarcoating,
yeah,
there's no euphemisms there. That is the truth. So before we
yes,
shift to the next topic, I want to end this with the last question here. Every
yes,
time people have asked me, so we have a, hey, Krish, you're a developer. AI is writing a lot of the code. Claude does a lot of code generation. There's a lot of tools that can assist in coding. So the need for developers is vastly diminishing. Right now, I've never disagreed there. But
mhm,
here is my point, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So yeah, my point here is,
yeah,
while it's undeniable that AI is actually able to do a lot of the work that a developer was able to do, so you can do things quicker.
mhm,
So, 2 years ago, if you had a product manager, and if they were, I did not expect for them to be able to contribute to the code base, right? But today,
yeah,
that same product manager can do wipe coding and a number of other things where they become part of the dev team. So
mhm,
before the actual core developer writes the first line of code towards a feature, I can see 70% of that be done, 60% of that be done by a non-coder because I can get not just the wireframes and the mockups, I can get a functional piece of code that's working because you did more than what you could do in the past, right?
That's true.
Now that's one thing. So the developer's job kind of is under fire to some extent. But at the same time, I want to flip the coin here and ask a question. I believe this truly. While it's possible and it's very likely that more and more developers are going to be replaced by agents and tools and AI, it's actually even easier for a developer to replace other roles in the team with AI. I can replace. I respect every role in the organization, but I cannot change the truth for my convenience. Someone who's doing UI work today, someone who's doing UX work today, someone who's doing project management work today, someone who's doing Scrum Master work today, someone who's doing testing today, someone who's doing sales today, someone who's doing marketing today, someone who's doing research today. I can tell you that a lot of those roles are going to be under a lot more fire than developers are going to be, right? So anytime someone asks me, I'll be like, you know what, you have a great point, but I would worry about every other role in the team before I worry about the developer's role, right? That's just my 2 cents. I want to get your thoughts on that topic. What do you feel? We talked about developers and their roles being under fire. Do you feel like the rest of the roles have a much larger risk at play here?
Definitely, yeah, because the whole point of AI is automation. By automation, it's not just coding automation. It's any other task that's around the development process is being automated. For example, I mentioned testing. There's a lot of testing being automated. There's a lot of even for that matter, like a technical debt, like for example, upgrading Java version or things like that. Now it's not. We don't expect developers to go and scan the code and say how can I upgrade, like what are the dependencies. Now we can automate those process and as you mentioned, even the product management. So the what product management envision, so that can now given so if we provide like a persona and what you want the product to do, it can AI can now create detailed like a list of the steps and like a documentation on what the requirements are going to be for this particular feature set and given the persona. So there's a lot of risk associated with, I think, more than developers, it's the surrounding functionalities that is going to be at a higher risk. So definitely, again, for them to, it's now that the whole development process has been much easier because of introduction of AI. They have to think about how can they become, like I would say, like a part-time developer, because now it's they don't have to be like a full-fledged developer, but they have to slowly start adapting to looking at the code, looking at AI to say how they can start creating features or even automation for that matter for their own work that they are doing. So that will lead them on to like an instead of saying a test engineer, you can say they become automation engineers, for example. So that's a new. So they have to think about rolling over into a new role within the organization, where it's either they lead that effort and then make sure they are able to do it. Again, as I mentioned before, it's just the train has already left the station, right? So we either get on the train or we left behind the station. So it's that's what.
Okay, good points there. So let me ask you, you mentioned a number of things where AI is able to do, right? And I agree. What is something that you think AI is either not unable to do today, or you see it be unable to do for years to come? Can you tell us a few things where you think AI is going to actually continue to fall short, and we're going to have to sort of fill that gap as humans?
I would say if one thing that I see is if it's a very simple, a small feature set, it's able to do it. When you give a complex task, meaning you have like a multiple hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and you want to pinpoint what the issue is in this code, for example, like a troubleshooting. So it can do for a much smaller
But
code set.
Surya, but that I have to believe is only a matter of time, right? There's no technical limitation in limiting AI to be able to do that, right? So my question is more about a type of problem that I have a question that's a follow-up question, but I want to get your
Yeah.
thoughts before I bias you with my follow-up. What are some types of problems that you think AI is uh, not the right candidate to be able to address those issues because it's fundamentally a misfit for that?
Um, I would say it's hard to think
And
because
here's what I'll tell you, right?
yeah,
Here's what I mean when I'm asked the
yeah,
question, just to give you context, right? I'll give you a very trivial example from like years ago, right? Years
okay.
ago, right? One of my first jobs was at Oracle, right? Those years ago. It feels like a last lifetime, but it was years ago. So, not because it was at Oracle. One of the first things I did there was it was very database centric, right? Not because they're a database company, they're a software company. So I ended up doing a lot different set of different things beyond from that point. But one of the initial things I did was focusing on everything that was database centric. And I remember an example from a long time ago, which I think still holds good, and I want to give that as an example. Say a SQL query is performing poorly, right? And now someone comes and tells me, hey, Krish, this query is performing poorly. Can you tune it? Just look at it, see what's going on and what the issues are, right? And as a junior developer, I take the query, I try to see what's happening. Hey, you know what? What is the optimizer pick? And this is memory from like years ago. Oracle used to have like a rule-based optimizer and a cost-based optimizer. I don't know if they have all those things today, but they used to have those. And then you see which plan it picked from an explain plan standpoint. You see whether it's using the indexes and the indices that you expect for it to use. If not, you force a hint or change the index and yada yada yada. Right? You do all of those changes. But the thing I did not ask at that time was, hey, should this query even be running in the first place? In other words, someone told me, Surya came and told me, Krish, this query is slow, go look at it. And Krish was like, yep, let me go tune the query. Without thinking for a second, if this query should even come into play while I'm rendering that particular page, because maybe that query is a useless query, maybe it's a redundant query, right? And then I learned as a slightly less junior developer, just don't go about executing things blindly. Try to understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do that, right? To me, this is a decent enough example, if you will, because there's a human element involved there, right? Before I
That's
go
true.
to tune the query, I want to ask the question whether it's worthy of tuning or should it even be worthy of execution? Should it even execute? AI, by virtue of what it does, it relies on everything that's happened in the past. I can go tell you, AI, go look at every movie Clint Eastwood made and create a new movie and write a script like Clint Eastwood. Write a script like Martin Scorsese. Write a script like Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
But I cannot try to have AI write a script like Quentin Tarantino if he did not ever create movies, right?
that's true.
So, isn't there a massive gap there in creativity where you cannot rely on AI for a certain set of things unless those very same things have transpired in the past and there is a model that actually reflects that learning?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right, because that's what I even feel. So I mentioned debugging in the past, right? So, for example, let's say there's a issue with the performance, or even things are not working fine in production once you move code to a production. It's not. I feel the AI. One thing that I feel AI is falling short is thinking like a human. Speaking of how the AI even works, is it's today it's nothing but a predictive model. Like let's say if you give like a sentence with 10 words, it just tries to predict what is the 11th and 12th word. So it needs the history of what the
Right.
first 10 words is. So it cannot uh, think like a human, like totally, where there's absolutely no context, and have to come up with something totally new. So that's where it's struggling today.
So,
I
which
don't know if
means,
the future is it's going to be like this, but at least today, as of today, that's where. So, for example, if you look at some of the developers, they use AI to look at the logs, the AI splits. Okay, it looked at the log and it just splits. Okay, this is what I found. And then they just try to say, okay, this is what I found. Then I had to challenge them, say, did you look at to say the module that they are complaining about, is this related to this module at all? And why is so there are we cannot just take what spits out using the logs and say, okay, this is what the problem is, because it don't know how to think. It don't even have the context behind the issues that has been manually communicated from the customer to the company, right? So those it's missing those contexts, and even with the context, I don't think AI will be able to do a good job today.
Okay, great,
Mm.
great point. So, we are at the 1 hour mark, but I have a number of other things to ask you.
Yeah,
So, do you want to keep going? I can do either. It's left to
yeah,
your time, Surya.
yeah. I just want to just charge my phone, and then because just give me a second.
No worries.
Yeah, keep going now. I'm good.
Perfect. Okay. And anytime you want to call it wraps, let me know. Okay. Because the
Sure.
conversation is interesting. And if you know me, so you know that I can keep talking, right?
Yeah, no
But
problem.
this
Yeah,
is amazing. I really appreciate your time here. So anytime you want to call it wraps, just give me a 10-minute notice and then we'll call it wraps, right? But
sure,
these
no
are
problem.
these are great points.
Yeah,
So we talked about just a quick recap at the top of the hour, right?
yeah,
So we talked about Surya's college, early learnings,
mm,
bachelor's, master's, from many years ago. The current master's, which is going to be completed in the near term, and perhaps even
mm,
PhD to come in future. We talked about transitioning from one role to the other, continuous
mm,
learning. As the Japanese term goes, right? Kaizen, or continuous improvement, right? You
yeah,
just keep improving your skills. We talked about AI and how it's changing software development, the facet, whole nature of engineering.
yeah,
We talked about a little bit about, we'll talk about financials in a second because I think it's an important topic.
yeah,
But we talked about what AI can do, a lot of it, and we talked a little bit about what AI is unable to do, perhaps in the
mhm,
short term or in the long term as well, right?
yeah,
That's us so far. So I have a few different things here. Let's just sort of shift gears a little bit. Let's talk, given that we both come from India and the same part of the country, right? A warm, beautiful part. Warm in terms of
yes,
people and
yeah,
warm in terms of weather as well, right? Very warm part of the country. I want to ask you about outsourcing for a second, right?
mhm,
Uh, this is an important topic and it's close to heart for everybody, right?
yeah,
Everyone feels it one way or the other. I've had my share of experiences over the years, some good,
mhm,
some not so good, right?
yeah,
It's just how it goes, right? Everywhere you find good people and not so good people.
mhm,
Now, my first point here, which is again maybe a point of contention, maybe, is that I've never had a need, Surya, to go find help outside the country that we both live in, which is the US,
mhm,
because I could not find the skills here, right? Whether it's
yeah,
for me at the company at Snowpal, or whether when I was working for a client helping them build something, right?
mhm,
The conversation was almost always, hey, how expensive is it going to be to build something here?
mhm,
And is it going to be more affordable to build something in another part of the world, for instance, right? So
yeah,
consulting comes into play. Large Indian consulting companies like Infosys and TCS and Wipro and all those companies, right?
yeah,
I'm just taking India as an example because there are a lot of companies in India and there's a lot of people coming from India, but it's applicable to other countries as well.
mhm,
Now, AI is able to sort of get things done with fewer people.
mhm,
Um, so if I said this to you, I want to get your thoughts and reactions, right? Hey, Surya, I don't really need to do outsourcing as much anymore because
mhm,
if I needed 10 people to get something done, I can get it done with 3 people.
mhm,
And I would rather have those 3 people co-located in either the continental US or in the 50 states, right? Just in the US colonies or territories and states and whatnot,
yeah,
because of other conveniences, right? Language
mhm,
and culture and this and that, that I don't really have to go 10,000 miles away to
mhm.
find people to help me out. What is your reaction to that?
Um, my reaction is yes and no. The reason I'll say is if it's a small organization, as I mentioned, like I'd say, it's a team of 10 people or less, or even let's say I'll say even less than 100 people company. There's a staff that you need to build your product. Probably it might hold good, but when you talk about much larger organization who have in the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, or even like let's say 500 people, 1,000 people company. The once you start growing, it's even though the AI has helped us improve productivity and reduce the number of people needed to handle the same job, since with the growth comes the more need for more labor, because of these, maybe it's the size of the product, or it may be the support that's needed. So once they start growing into hundreds, at the time again, it's either labor cost is going to skyrocket. So at that point, you may have to look at resources in other countries who can help us. For example, support is something that cannot be automated. We need people to man the support services. So that's something, or even IT services for that matter. Once the company starts growing, you need dedicated IT staff to serve what is needed in terms of providing the hardware and support for the company, maintaining the infrastructure of the applications that is needed and things like that, right? So at that point, maybe with a smaller company can get away with not having to outsource, and they can really use AI's productivity to keep the cost down. But once you grow, I think it becomes inevitable that you may
That's
have to
interesting. So,
use some of
Surya, so what do you mean? Then is your point then that the impact on consulting organizations, I want to take companies that are outside the country and ones in the country as well, like
Yeah.
Accenture or McKinsey or large consulting companies. Is your prediction that they won't be impacted as much in the coming years, but their staff remains the same in terms of size, or do you see them reduce in number because consulting is going to actually take a hit because of AI?
Yeah, consulting definitely will take a hit because of AI. But again, if those companies, for example, Accenture, other companies, they don't grow in terms of number of clients they are serving, they have to reduce their staff. And I predict that they would rather staff more people offshore than onshore because of the cost, because they can get the job done. Once they have the project, they can get it. Maybe the main coordinators will be onshore, and most of the actual team which does the job will be offshore. Still, the offshore is going to be higher in terms
Okay,
of
so that's
percentage.
interesting. So Surya,
Yeah.
then your point then is while AI is going to change the nature of work, the
Mhm.
whole facet of consulting and outsourcing, you're not necessarily seeing AI disrupt that industry.
No, it won't disturb the industry. It's just that they might become more. They might reduce the number of people that is needed to handle the projects, but I would say the ratio of people that they have today across the globe, that won't change.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, I think
Yeah.
that's a fair point because it could, one could also argue that, hey, I've outsourced UI development to a
Mm.
different country in the past, and now I might outsource the training of models to a different country as well, right? The
Yep.
type of work is perhaps changing, but the
Yep.
nature of the structure of the teams in itself and where they're located, you're saying may or may not be subject to change. And I think
Yes.
I can
Yep.
see why, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
fair point. The only thing I want to add there is I saw a recent report. I can't remember the name of the company. Maybe it's McKinsey, maybe somebody else, where
Yep.
they charged millions of dollars to create an AI generated report, right? It was in the
Yep.
news, right? Where people found out that finally this was actually generated by AI. So
Yep.
meaning, so there is going to be an impact. It depends on how they structure themselves. And I think
Mm.
PricewaterhouseCoopers, I think did a fair bit of reorg recently, if I'm not wrong, but they actually have an AI president or somebody of that. I may have even heard him talk in one of the speeches. Very smart guy. So I think there is going to be some level of disruption. It's just that you're saying that the percentage of workforce here versus elsewhere might not necessarily change to a dramatic degree, is what you're saying.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. The total number of headcounts might change, but the proportion, I would say, it's still going to be the same.
Okay, good point, right? Okay, next, as we go to the next items, let's talk about finance and stocks for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
One, we are building a fintech API, but you're also in the financial industry, so and it's an interesting topic. We're talking AI, and this is 2026, right? By the way, Happy New Year to Surya and everybody who's
Yeah. Happy New Year.
watching. Let's talk about the biggest companies, right? Unless somebody's been living under a rock, they would have heard of Nvidia. They would have heard of, say, AMD, which has been around much longer, but they're doing slightly different things these days. So Nvidia is like a 5 trillion, I guess they dropped a bit, $4.5 trillion company, give or take, right?
Yep.
So they make GPUs. There's another company called Broadcom that does a different kind of chip, right? It's slightly different from the ones that Nvidia makes, ASICs. which Alphabet is actually working closely with and procuring, while Amazon AWS is creating their own titanium, or what is it? I believe
Titanium, yeah.
right?
Amazon is doing titanium, their
Yeah,
own
they're doing
silicon.
those chips, but not so much as like Broadcom is one of the big players, close to $2 trillion. Nvidia is like $5 trillion. AMD is small, but Dr. Lisa is who's running it, so I would be surprised if they become really big, even bigger tomorrow. And semiconductor companies, right? They are in that space, lock, stock, and barrel, right? Let's talk about them. And then there's memory and storage companies, and then there's software companies, and then AI specific companies like CoreWeave and Nebius and those kind of companies.
Yeah.
You said earlier it's not hype. I believe it's not hype either. But you probably saw the recent Michael Burry thing from a couple of months ago, Surya, where he had actually shorted Palantir and Nvidia, and I think he closed those short positions, and there's a bit of tremor, a little bit of tremor in the market. Again, this is not financial advice to everybody, so this is for entertainment purposes only. Take it with a grain of salt. But I want to get Surya's perspective on, if you had $100 today, Surya, and you had to invest that fresh, right? Let's talk about tech industry and the non-tech industry, right? The first question is, again, I ask this because financials and investment is very important, right? As you get started in life, the more people I talk to, the folks who are getting out of folks who are getting out of college and going to the workforce, I feel like a lot of times people end up buying things that are depreciating assets because they are attracted to a nice car, maybe a nice phone, those types of things, and don't make the necessary investments. And then you end up regretting it down the road, few years down the road, right? So I think as much as engineering learning is important, financial learning is just as important. And I'm not convinced that the academic institutions are doing as good a job as they potentially could to educate the next generation. So with that in mind, I want to ask, right? Let's say someone gave you $100 and told you help me invest for the next 5 years, right? How would you diversify that investment? And here's specifically the question, Surya, between the tech industry and the non-tech industry, and within the tech industry, what categories of tech, right? Is it semiconductors? Is it software? Is it storage and, memory? Is it the picks and shovels of AI like data centers and energy? How would you actually split the $100 if someone gave you and told you, invest it in 2026, don't touch it till 2030, right? For the next 5 years. How would you actually use that money?
Okay. I tend to be like a very high risk investor. So from my perspective, I want. I mean, this is the age where we can try to maximize our return at the risk of also losing money. But
Surya, I'm going to interrupt you here because did you say that you're a high risk investor?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Wow, in my mind, for whatever reason, I actually thought that you would be a, very like a mid growth, you know what I mean? Like an investor who wouldn't take a lot of chances, but that's good to know. You're talking to somebody who's exactly that. So please, I'm super excited now. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So as a high risk investor, I'm always looking for higher returns, even though I know I can lose money. But that's another reason why I want to be like very picky on the companies and the house is going to bet on. I want to make sure they are going to be successful. So I have my personal investment is on all the tech industry. That's where 95% of my investment is.
Okay, so first thing, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you along the way. So the first answer is, out of 100%, you're saying 95% in the tech space, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, because so you're bought in lock, stock, and barrel into this. Much like me.
I'm all full into it. But I would say, I mean, the diversification is really important. So I would say that when you have investors, the one who are starting fresh, like people who just got into the workforce, they're just starting to build their assets, and then there are like a midlife people where they have done enough, but at the same time they have looking for how can I save my future, and then there's a group of people who are like closer to retirement. So I would say the both the ends where they are just starting and on the other end where people are closer to retirement, I would not recommend being a high risk. So I would say definitely go to some extent tech industry, but look at healthcare and other industries which are much more stable.
But wait, Surya, I have a question for you here.
Yeah.
So I got the part where you're closer to retirement. You're
Yep.
getting ready to look at your IRAs and
Mm.
401ks and whatnot,
Yeah.
and you're saving up, because your income streams have changed.
Mm.
So you want to play it safe. I
Yes.
understand that,
Yeah.
but the thing I'm not sure I understand is why are you recommending that somebody who's getting started, who's got their
Mhm.
entire life ahead of them,
Yeah.
why should they play it safe?
Yeah, probably it also comes from my experience too. So when they start new, I mean, they don't have a huge set of assets that to play.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
one thing is the tech stocks are like very costly, and to get into it, it's not going to be easy. The money that they are going to make is not like going to be huge. At the same time, since they are just starting, they'll also be looking at having like a family, buying a home, and they cannot risk a lot of their investment. So if there's a
Oh
market ups and
wow.
downs,
Okay.
I don't think they should be risking the investment. So they should definitely get into tech industry, but I won't say put 90% or 80% into tech industry. So they will
Okay.
play safe just until they start building a good set of asset, and then once they have a good amount of investment that they already have, then they can start playing with more high risk.
Okay, good
So
point. But tell me, because a
yeah,
lot of our listeners also are in that demographic,
yeah.
or watchers, depending on which mode they consume. How would you recommend that they split? Let's say I'm getting out of college.
Mhm.
I usually don't have $100 when I'm getting out of college, but sometimes you do, right? Let's say
Yeah.
hypothetically, if I got out of college, what are the industries I should look into, and how do I divvy up the $100?
So I would say healthcare has always been like a great industry in terms of with much less impact due to AI changes. So it's not like the ups and downs is much lesser in healthcare industry. And
Okay,
now
so
with
what, $20? Should we say 20%? What is the number?
I would say yeah, so around 30% I would put in healthcare,
Okay,
and
okay.
then I would say for those two both the ends, I would say don't go beyond 25% in tech sector.
Tech sector, okay.
Yeah.
55. We have
Yeah.
45 left.
And then I would say go for energy because energy is an industry that is also growing because of AI, because there's a huge hunger for energy. And I think you might have read the news that Google just bought a energy generation company because to feed their data centers. So
Wow.
that's how energy.
Surya, I
Yeah.
did a podcast 2 days ago and I just focused on energy. And
Mhm.
I want to hear because, energy, I talked to a founder of a CEO of a data center
Mhm.
uh, about a couple of months back. And he mentioned to me that a 1 gigawatt data center
Mhm.
consumes as much energy as 1 million single family homes. I did
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
know that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a couple of questions. So energy is one. So for
Yeah.
45%, how much would you allocate to energy sector?
I would say around another 25% to energy sector.
Okay, we have 20% left. Where should we put that?
Then we should go with retail. So retail is very tough because Amazon is retail, but it's also considered tech industry. So, but
But what
Amazon's
about
and
retail?
Walmart's
Like,
and
what about
Costco.
retail? Like, I say Lulu and Ulta and Elf, like that type of, discretionary retail. How much would you put in that space?
I would not bet on them because um, it's very generational in terms of like every 5 to 10 years, if the brands keeps going up and down in terms of their popularity and the money that they make. But I would rather say look at Costco's and Walmart's. So that's where it's
Hmm.
more stable in terms of what you can make.
Okay, that's a great split, right?
Yeah,
So now, if you come to the someone like us, you said
yeah,
where you're doing 95%
yeah.
in the tech space. How is your $95 split across the tech sector? I mean, what type of companies? Not specific companies. Initially, my first question is how much would you put in semiconductor companies out of the $95?
So I would say uh, in the semiconductor, I would rather have like around 40%, and then
Okay, let's make it $100 because
yeah.
now 40, I have to get the 40% of the 95. I'm
Mhm.
just lazy, so I'm just going to do it as 100 and take the 40%. So $40, right?
Yeah.
What about the remaining 60?
So the remaining 60, I would say I would bet on companies like Microsoft and like
So
AWS,
software, right? Like
so
hardware,
software
software-ish
company
companies like
which grow.
Apple, the hyperscalers,
Yes.
right? How
Yeah,
much would you put
Apple's
on the
and
hyperscalers? How much?
Um, I would say so. In the app developers and who support this infrastructure, the ecosystem of AI, I would say I would put around another 40 to 45%.
So does that include companies like CoreWeave and Nebius, or is that a different category? I'm
That's a
asking with
different
this for.
category. So I don't invest in so because I know I'm going to take huge risk because 95% of my investment in tech industry. So I only go with the horse that I can really bet on. Even after the big let's say there's a market crash, for example, and I'm sure they are going to come back up. So, for
Okay.
example, like Microsoft, Apple, Google, and
Amazon and
Amazon,
yeah.
Netflix. So those are the companies I really bet on. So Netflix is another one. So entertainment industry is also really good, at least for now. But it's still there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of acquisitions, mergers. But I think there's a good feature in
Okay.
at least for
So
Netflix. So
okay, good point, right? Let me ask you a question.
yeah,
You probably know this circle where
yeah.
Nvidia is investing its money in a lot of the companies. They
Yes.
then purchase chips from Nvidia using that very same money.
Hmm.
And Bloomberg had created this very interesting cyclical chart or a
Yes.
graphic that says that the money is going from the same people to the same set of people coming back to the same people, right? So
Yep.
if hell broke loose anywhere in that in that circle, right?
Yeah.
Uh, things could go haywire.
Yep.
So what do you see? Let's take market crash or correction as one side. Surya,
Yep.
do you see a risk with Nvidia investing in companies, then them buying it back from Nvidia, where Oracle is also part of the mix? How much
Yes.
risk do you associate there, and how much does it worry you as an
Yeah, it is.
investor?
It is a huge. So I have been looking at the cyclical dependencies of these companies, and that's also like bothering me. But at the same time, I want to ride the wave. It's just like I would think of as a surfer. Where there's a good wave, you just go and ride it, right? But at the same time, you be cautious. So, for example, you can have like limit trades where you can say once if it takes a 20% hit, just go and sell it.
You know
So
what,
you have to
Surya?
be very careful on those
What
lines.
I'm going to do, I'm going to
Yes.
actually invite you back to a podcast where we talk pure finance, right? Pure
Okay, sure.
finance, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's going to be interesting because I've spent a lot of time the last many months
yeah,
looking at that because of the tool we are actually starting to build.
yeah,
And what you're telling me sort of is resonating very much so. But I know
yeah.
that I have a lot to ask there, right? So
Yes.
I leave folks with a teaser here, right? The next time I bring you back, hopefully I can encourage you to come back to talk about different categories within the AI
Mm-hmm.
space. I want to
Sure.
talk a little bit about semiconductors in companies, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
AMD,
Yeah,
Nvidia, Broadcom.
yeah,
I'm sure Intel is also happens to be in the space where they're going to do the manufacturing in the US,
yeah.
ASML, TSMC, and a bunch of those semiconductor companies.
Yes.
I would like to also talk about storage companies like
Mm-hmm.
Micron,
Mm-hmm.
which, oh my God, in the last 3 weeks, they've gone up like a 40%, right? It's
Yes.
insanity, right? And
Yeah.
even the first day of the year. So Micron, Pure Storage, Seagate, a number of companies in that space of storage and my memory is important, right?
Yeah.
One sector. And then you have data centers like Vertiv, Iron, there's Equinix not too far from, in Loudon. We live in Loudoun County, so we're
Yeah.
seeing all of these data centers, right? The picks and shovels.
Yeah.
And then the energy companies like Bloom Energy, and there's one called UUUU, and there's one called Sunrun, some
Mm-hmm.
in the residential space that are entering into the data center space, for instance. And then you have the hyperscalers like we talked about Meta and,
Yeah.
Alphabet and Microsoft that are pouring all the hundreds of billions of dollars into these companies.
Yeah.
And then you have the last category of interesting enterprise software companies, which actually have not had a great last year.
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce, Adobe,
Yeah.
ServiceNow, they've not done very well.
That's
So we
true.
can
Yeah.
talk about
Workday, even Workday for that matter. Yeah.
Workday, right?
Yeah.
Another company in that space. So we can talk
Yeah.
about them. So I would leave people saying, you know what, I'm going to bring Surya back to talk about these financials and companies, right?
Yeah.
So let's get to the last two items I have here. One is uh, risk of, people say, right, Surya, that sometimes things are riskier, less riskier, more riskier, right? And sometimes the risk of doing something
Mhm.
is less than not doing it, right? I'll tell you what Sundar Pichai said is one of the conferences where, they plunged, not where Alphabet is at today at $315, but like 6 months ago when they were $160. He spent a lot of money and they asked him, oh my God, Sundar, you're spending too much money on AI. And I think one of his responses, I'm paraphrasing, is he said that the risk of underspending on AI is a lot higher than the risk of spending on AI, is what he had said at the time, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So I want to take that and ask you about employment versus entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
Now, I can say that running a business is harder than anything I've done in my entire life, right? It's harder than the hardest line of code I've written. It's harder than the hardest travel journey I've been on. It's harder than the hardest, most inedible food I've eaten, or in other words, it's been the hardest thing I've done.
Yep.
What do you see? The question I have is, people say, "Hey, I would rather be employed. Running a business is risky. There's no guarantee of returns. You don't know where things are going." But I say to them, being employed is also risky, right? Things are always changing.
Yep.
No matter how hard you work, you're still a number on the roster, right? If things don't go right, I've had great friends, good friends back in the day who worked in the VLSI team at Intel, if I'm not wrong. One of the smartest people I've ever known, right? They got laid off while I was a JavaScript developer, maybe something along those lines. I was not laid off, right? I'm not saying JavaScript development is any lesser than VLSI design.
Yep.
I'm just saying that sometimes it's not just you, it's the industry, right?
That's
so,
true.
what is your take on employment versus entrepreneurship, and where do you see risks versus rewards?
Definitely, entrepreneurship has the risk. As I mentioned, it's just like a stock market where you're ready to bet on a very high risk industry. It depends on the appetite for someone to take the risk. So for example, let me say, for my personal journey, I tried doing freelancing for a year, but I was on the back of my mind, I was always worried about job security, and I feel like coming from a middle class family back home, I feel like having a regular income is what is safest for me. And also, as you mentioned, as an entrepreneur, I think it's easier to build a product than to sell it, right?
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
that's the main concern that I have, and I don't feel like I have the skills to sell. So that's one thing that's keeping me back from having being an entrepreneur. But I really want to. My goal is to build a product that I can go and sell. I really want to do it, but the fact that I'm not a good salesperson is like holding me back, and the risk that goes with it. So if I have a partner who is really good in sales, then probably I will just jump into it.
I think it's a great
That's the
answer.
main reason why.
I think it's an important answer, very important answer. Sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you there.
Yeah, so I think definitely, just like the high risk investments, entrepreneurship has its rewards that if things goes right, but it's just that it's either going to be like really great that you take off and you make good money, you make a great company, you build a great company that is worth your growth and the time that you have put into it, or it can go down the other way. So there's a bit startups. I would say a lot of startups have failed, but many of them have also succeeded. So without taking risk, it's just that if you have the background and ability to take the risk, and I would say at this age I won't do it. But if I'm much younger, let's say I'm in 30s, where I have a lot more years to build. If I fail, then I would rather take the risk.
I think those are, I want to just add to that saying, when we started the company, Surya, I think we thought engineering would be the hardest, right?
Yes.
And I'm not trivializing it. Every day it's still a challenge, right? It's not easy to build software, right? Don't get me wrong. But sometimes some skills come more naturally to you than other skills. And then
That's
you
true.
don't appreciate the ones that actually do come naturally to you, right? So once we built our first offering, I've talked to a lot of salespeople along the way, the last year or two on the podcast. And I've always told them how difficult their jobs are, right? And I've also told engineers, because sometimes, you could be a developer in a company, you're building software, you're shielded. And I know many a developer who thinks that they are the most important people in an organization because they're building what is actually running or interpreted by machines or executed by machines, right? It's binary code. But it can execute something all day long. If nobody else is going to use it, if there's no product market fit, there's no point in actually building something. But at the same time, who said this the other day? I was listening to, I think it was the Airbnb CEO, if I'm not wrong, or one of those guys who said that, you have to build a working version of something, more importantly, than going and interviewing 1,000 people, asking them whether you should be building something, right? So people have to find what works best for them. You can do all the research all year long and not build something.
Yeah.
But you rather build something and figure out whether there is a fit and make adjustments accordingly, right?
Yeah.
But the necessity to have sales and the importance to actually have sales in the mix could not be understated ever, for instance, right? So I
That's true.
completely
Yeah.
agree with you. It's a very important thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. As we get to the tail end of what we're talking about here, what would you tell your younger self, right? I've not asked this question to a lot of people, but somehow I feel like I want to ask it here. In other words, if you had the opportunity to go back at 20 years, right? Would you do things differently at all? And if so, what would you do differently? And what are some of the things that you do so differently from you've done this time around?
Sure. Yeah. One thing that I regret not doing, which I would have done when now that I know, and after all these years, I've been trying to even have more understanding of me now than I had when I was in 20s or 30s. So knowing uh, my capability and what I should have done before is I should have, as you mentioned, I should have become an entrepreneur. I think the mindset and the my ability to take risk and I want to explore and stay with the latest trend and things like that. I think I would have been better fit as an entrepreneur than being an employee of a company. So I think at this age, I think I don't have the ability to take risk and then jump into that being an entrepreneur. So I really regret that today. So
Okay,
definitely I
so
would have.
what? Tell me one thing that you thought was, outside of this. Let's say if you
Yep.
go back 20 years, were there things where you thought that this is how it's supposed to be, and then as you learned over the years, you
Yep.
found out that not really, right? I actually misread this whole situation because I thought
Yes.
things were supposed to be this way because maybe we were told that, right? We were all told by previous generations. We
Yep.
tend to learn from parents. Sometimes, hopefully, it's for the good, but not always, right? Because sometimes, it's my opinion. Indian parenting is a topic for another day.
Yep.
That's just a different beast altogether. Uh, but a lot of times you're not even asked what you want to do, right? You're
That's
saying, hey,
true.
you know
Yeah.
what? You're finishing in grade 12, go to college.
Yep.
Of course, engineering and medicine are the only two options out there because there's apparently no other thing you could possibly do. So pick
Yep.
one of those two things and go for it. Once you're done with bachelor's, go do your master's or take the plane, go to the west or whatever else you need to do at that point of time, for instance, right?
Yep.
In that journey, Surya, were there things where you did because everybody else around you did it and you did it and you're like, you know what, maybe I should not have done it? Are there things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think what the your family has a very important role in shaping what you are. So we have been traditionally employed, my parents, for example, and everyone around me. They were we were brought up telling that employment and having a steady income is key to have like a successful family and successful future. But I think uh, right now, knowing what I'm capable of doing and what my abilities are, I think I would have been a better entrepreneur than being just an employee because I feel like I have wasted a lot of my time in uh, helping other companies grow. Where
Build
I
their
would have
dreams,
built
right?
myself. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
In other
yeah,
words, I have a quote right there that's sitting here that says it's got DiCaprio's face on it. It says
yeah.
97% of the people who gave up too soon are working for the 3% who did not, for instance, right? Now,
Yeah.
I think those are great points there. So, which means, uh, you know, even as parents, they don't
Yeah,
get it wrong intentionally, but they get it wrong unintentionally because they think this is
that's
probably
true.
the best career path for you, right?
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
what are one or two things that the West, America is a beautiful country,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that the country has taught you,
Mhm.
that you're like, you know what, I I really appreciate that learning, right? If you could,
Yes.
you have to pick the top two things that the US has taught you or made you, what would those two things be?
Okay. Yeah. I think in India, the way I even joke with my friends is education and work is like a pipeline. You just put the kid in first grade, and then they graduate in 12th grade,
Right.
either in science or economics, and then that decides which college you go to, like engineering or arts, and then that decides which company you're going to work for. So it's like a pipeline throughout your lifetime. But here, I think. The opportunities that you see in the US is I can be like a totally a non-techie, And then at some point in like my 20s or 30s, I decided to become go into venture into tech. That is pathways. There's learning opportunities. That is companies are ready to take you. They don't just look at you are a non-techie. That means you can never be a techie. So they don't have that assumptions in this country. See, and you can switch. I can be a techie totally, and then I want to foray into finance, like capital markets. I want to be a investment banker someday. I can switch. There's enough opportunities in terms of both education, and the companies are ready to accept the change. So I think the opportunities are like limitless. So I can so that's something I really learned. And with working with my kids when they with throughout the school and applying for colleges, I see that it's we are not the options are not just very narrow in terms of like engineering, science, and arts. There's a lot of combination. For example, people won't even think of having psychology as one of the majors for doing business. For example, psychology is not just about like in the medical term. It's also like organization psychology is there, and even now the hottest thing is math, because math is the basics for all the models that they are building. So back home, if you do like a bachelor's in mathematics, there's not much options for you to go into for your in the career wise, right? So here, it has opened up the industries are opening up for like more like even psychology and machine learning. It's a deadly combination because now you look at how people think and you model based on those people how people think. So those are like a very different set of combinations that I never imagined even before. That is coming into play in terms of what can
That's
take you to the
amazing.
next level.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So another 10 minutes for us to wrap up. Let me ask you things quickly,
Yep.
which is if you were not an engineer, if you're not a developer, if you're not what you're doing today, what would have been the other thing you would have done? And I ask this because, my favorite composer, hopefully it's for you too, is Rahman, right?
Yep.
Rahman could have been a computer engineer. Thankfully, he's not one because I'm sure he'd have been a great coder, but there's enough of us, not enough of him, right? So
Yep.
if you were not doing the Surya, what else would you have been doing?
Yeah, so I picked up the a passion for photography. I think I really love it. And, it's very creative in terms of what you can do with photography. Probably that would have been my what I could have been like I could like do travel photography, like
So do you do
go.
it now? Do you do it today?
Yeah, I do. So I do. So I learned how to use like a manual mode, like a camera, and I do a lot of. So whenever I travel, one of the I would say the heaven for a photographer is Santorini, Greece. It's just out of the world in terms of what you can imagine photograph there. So it's I would say travel photography would have been my next passion.
Wow, we don't live too far. So if you're out there in the area doing it, hit me up. I would love to join. I love
Sure, sure.
photography too. I
Okay,
learned
good.
it from my father a little bit. He used to have a Minolta camera from like
Yeah.
50 years ago. And in India, you could not get those 28 by 200 or 300 zoom lenses, and he actually imported them at the time. So I
Okay. Yeah.
really enjoy photography too. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Last thing, before let you ask me questions,
Yeah.
any advice to the next generation? Like, you know what? People are graduating. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it shouldn't, hopefully, it's not just engineering advice, right? I
That's true.
want an advice that's applicable to somebody who's in arts, who's in music, and maybe in sciences,
Mhm.
maybe doing different things. But what are one or two things you would tell that next generation so they live a very wholesome,
Mhm.
happy, peaceful
Yeah.
life, a life most importantly that they actually want to live,
Mhm.
not because someone else across the street is living that same life. What are some of those things you would tell them?
Yeah, one thing I would say is the new generation, even looking at my kids, one thing I want to tell them is have a goal in life because I think it's become like very casual where people just go into college. They don't look at. They don't have a idea on what when they graduate what they want to be. So I would say, I mean, it can be in any. For example, it can be music, it can be literature, architecture, or engineering, or IT. Anywhere they just don't go through college just for sake of going through it. Um, I mean, because college education here, mainly undergrad, is an amazing place that you cannot have the same experience in any other part of the world. Where, for example, in India, if you want engineering, all 4 years you just learn about engineering. Here, there's a lot of general education. There's a lot of introduction to other than what you want to major on. So you can at some point you have to say you have an option to say what your passion is. So you identify the passion and then see what you can do using that as make a goal out of it, and then make use of that education experience that this country is giving where we cannot get any other part of the world.
You know,
So that, I think that's the key for them to succeed.
Beautifully said, right? Two things you said there that hit the right note for me is
Yeah.
one is you said an opportunity you get nowhere else, right?
Yes.
America is just incredible. It's
Yes.
absolutely incredible, right? I mean,
Yes.
we live in the DC metro. I go to DC all the time to create content as well. And the
Yeah.
kind of people you run into is just hard to even explain or express, right? It's just amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing I mentioned was passion. I think
Yes.
it's a key point
Yes.
because no matter what you do, if you
Yeah.
don't have the genuine interest to do that,
Mhm.
it's not worthwhile doing it at all in the first place, right? It's just not worth it,
That's very
right?
true.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
key. I mean, you cannot create a Django Unchained or a Inglorious Bastards or a Kill Bill
Yeah.
if you don't like creating movies. You need to have the talent, sure, right? But you need
That's
to
true.
be someone who has that interest. Like Christopher Nolan created a movie, a short film called Following. This is his first movie. It
Yeah.
was made in black and white, right? Even before he made Memento. I'd seen it before he had gotten popular. It's an incredible movie, right? Sometimes you take these little pieces of work from incredible people and
Yeah.
you know that they're doing it not for the money. Money comes because they're good at that, right? Not because they're
That's true.
chasing
Yeah.
money, but that's just
Yeah.
because they're good at that.
Yeah.
This has been amazing, right? And one thing that comes across to me in the last 90 minutes, I've known you for years, it's not surprise, but for people who don't yet, at least in this space of the podcast, Surya, I'll tell you, the passion with which you describe, whether it's learning, whether it's investing, whether it's photography, whether whatever else we discussed here, right? It's very, I want to say, contagious, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word, right? And it's very important, right? It's very important that you put yourself in a place with people who genuinely enjoy what they do.
Mhm.
So you're not waking up to a Monday morning thinking, oh my God, I've got to go through a week, right? You're
Yeah.
waking up to a Monday morning thinking, you know what, it does. I mean, I honestly don't even know which is a Monday or a Saturday for that matter, but
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important. I've asked you a number of things and it's very easy to ask questions. I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me anything that you want to ask me, if there is anything that you want to ask me before we end this podcast.
Yeah, I want to ask you, like, I've known you for many years. One thing that I really, really admire is how we can have a conversation for hours. I know we used to talk for hours until like even like 2 a.m. sometimes. Like we never know what the time is when we talk, right?
Right.
So I'm one thing that I'm really lacking is to be a good conversation starter. I can answer questions, as you can see. I can, when you ask questions, I can. But it's very tough for me to be. I think to be in a good leadership role, you want to be a conversation starter. You need to hold the conversation and take the conversation to next level of multiple topics. So I want to see how we are able to do it. Is it something that you learned, or it just came in automatically, or
You know what,
how do you learn
Surya? It's so kind of you to say that. I really appreciate it. I'm actually in a double mind as to how to answer this question because you're talking to somebody who has every other skill. Now, if you end up teaching that dude one more skill, then what are the rest of us supposed to do? So it puts me in a state of like, Krish, if you actually tell the secret to Surya, that's the only skill you actually have. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to tell you that, right? It actually is a couple of things. One is, some of it is innate too, right? You're born with a certain personality. I will tell you a good friend of mine, an incredibly smart person, a whole lot smarter than I can ever imagine being. His name is Sridhar. I went to college with him. He told me that, when you take the GRE, right, the exam that a lot of us take to come here for studying, right? It's changed over the years, but they still have the exact same GRE standardized exam.
Yep.
You take a diagnostic test before you prepare, right?
Mhm.
So he says, it used to be out of 2,400 at the time. I think the numbers have changed now. It used to be quantitative, verbal, and analytical, 800 points apiece.
Yep.
He told me, hey, dude, you know what? You need to go take this test exam, the practice exam, without preparing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like without preparation
Yep.
to tell where you actually stand in the great scheme of things.
Yep.
And then after that, you slog as much as you can, but the standard deviation is unfortunately going to be only within the 15% range. Meaning,
Yep.
if I took the diog for 2,400 points and if I made 2,000, I'm never going to get to 2,400 because the standard
Yes.
deviations are 15 to 20%, right?
That's
And
true.
I think that is one of the most important pieces of advice I've ever gotten because, Surya, I'll tell you why.
Yep.
A lot of times you try to push yourself to doing things you don't enjoy doing, right?
Yep.
It doesn't go anywhere. The
Yep.
one thing I would say is we can only push ourselves to doing what we want to do, correct?
Yep.
So in your example here, let's say you want to be able to be a conversationalist that talks about n number of things.
Yep.
I have an answer. But I want to qualify that saying sometimes, we are forced to doing things that we don't enjoy doing.
Yep.
That's much harder. And I'll answer this in two parts, right? And I can speak to it very genuinely.
Yep.
The first part is some of us like talking. You know what I mean? Some of us just like talking.
Yep.
I say this because, I know Mrs. Suri as well, right?
Yes.
So I know she likes talking too, much like I do, right? And my better half, you couldn't pay her to talk unless she has to talk, for instance, right? So we live within the limits of what we like to do. But
Yes.
here is what I would say. I'll give one example, right? Maybe a fair enough example. When I'm running a company, Surya, I've realized there are many things that come naturally, right? Which is great. But there are so many things that do not come naturally.
Yes.
And if I do not learn those things, it's going to be really, really hard, right? Really hard. And I'll tell you one of the hardest things I've had to do. We built this product 5 years ago, the first of the products, right? And we were like, you know what? We actually thought somebody was going to break our front door, go to the kitchen, steal that software product, and then we'll be the richest people on the planet Earth, right? And then we keep looking for people to break through the front door. I'm like, what's wrong? We have a great product. Nobody's breaking through the front door and it doesn't happen. And then reality sets in. And I saw a podcast where Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He actually said, you could have the best product built. Unless you make an effort to sell it, it's going to be no good. It's absolutely useless, right?
Yep.
So sales, as you mentioned, is a difficult thing to do.
Yes.
One of the first things we had to do was get on LinkedIn to prospect somebody.
Yeah.
Hey, Surya, I'm Krish. I run this company. We build this. Do you think you want to use that, right? How difficult is this 3-line message? Especially for me, somebody like me who likes to talk, it should come naturally, right?
Yep.
I tell you, it was incredibly difficult, right? See, I can talk at length to people without expecting anything in return, with no agenda or ulterior motive.
Yep.
But the moment I had to sell something, I had no words. I could not find the right words to say. So
Yep.
it was very, very, very difficult. And it still is difficult, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But sometimes you put yourself in the line of fire. You're like, you know what? I shall have no ego. I don't know how to say this in English. I'm going to say it in our native tongue, right? Coincidentally, it happens to be the same language for the two of us. It's never usually the case, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to say this, folks, excuse me for saying this. I love English as much as I love my own language. So I'm going to take a 10-second pause to speak in my own language, right? Because it's going to hit the note right way and I'll do a sloppy translation. Vekkam, Manam, Sudu, Sorana, right? These are 4 words.
Yep.
And folks, I'm sorry, I don't know how to translate each of those words. Those are very important words I've learned where you've got to be absolutely shameless when it comes to doing certain things because the job that you do requires that level of shamelessness, right? So in other words, if I have to go sell what Snowpal makes, I cannot have these egos and shame. I'm going to have to get on, I have a good, I know somebody called Scott who lives in Boston, right? He's an incredible sales engineer. He told me, Krish, you can't have any ego, right? If you're unhappy in the call, wait till the end of the call and then you can, complain to somebody, but you're going to have to shed everything, every bit of ego that you have. So my best example, Surya, is just so the Apple thing doesn't pick up. Uh, you're very smart, obviously, but you're also hardworking, right?
Yep.
So if this is a little bit more difficult to get out of the comfort zone, I would say you pick up a topic that you actually are not interested in. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's going to be not engineering. It cannot be finance because you like that. It certainly cannot be AI. It cannot be photography. I would say pick a topic that you actually have no interest in, right?
Yep.
And find somebody to talk about that topic. I think that will be a phenomenal exercise, in my opinion, right? Because
That's
if you
true.
pick a topic that doesn't interest you, and I would even go a step further, pick
Yep.
somebody who actually does not interest you as a person. So pick a topic that's boring, pick a person that's painfully boring, and put yourself to test by having a 1 hour conversation with them. Once you
Yes.
do that, everything else becomes an easy conversation, right? Everything else becomes an easy conversation. I think for someone like you, Surya, it's going to be the easiest thing to do because you have so much interest and passion.
Yep.
So this should be an easy thing to do because there's so
It's
many topics, right? You can talk finance, you can talk AI, you can talk so many other things. So I think it should be a piece of cake for you. It should be an absolute piece of cake to doing that. If there are certain things that sort of prohibit you from doing it, if there are some qualms, I say put those qualms to rest by putting yourself through the most boring conversations, right?
Yep.
I will tell you, I have sat in conversations where, I don't cook a lot. I mean, not a lot. I don't cook at all, right? I would love to know that, but I don't know. It's a beautiful art. I have zero skills. But I've had conversations with people, and by people, I mean my own mom,
Mm.
where I've talked to her about cooking for like 30, 40 minutes, right?
Yep.
And then I figure, you know what? If I can talk about cooking, something I know nothing about, then you can put yourself to test, so to speak. So the only
Yep.
thing I would say is find a boring topic, find a boring person,
Yep.
make sure you talk to them, and then you'll be like, you know what? If I can do that for an hour, I can do that to everybody. You know,
Yes.
I'm not wondering, you're thinking to yourself, Krish, boring person, I've spent the last 90 minutes talking to you. Who can be any more boring? No, hopefully I'm not that boring, but that's all I have to say, right? But this
Yep.
is amazing, Surya. You know, I knew I was going to have a great time just having this conversation, just talking about many things. As closing comments, right? I want to ask you one thing and then you can have your closing comments.
Yep.
I asked this of all my guests, so I'm going to ask you as well. Just because we happen to come from the same part of the world, your answer might not come as a surprise to me, but I still ask the same question to everybody. What is your favorite food? And if that's something the audience may not understand, you may have to explain that. So, what's your favorite dish? In other words, what's your favorite dish?
So my favorite dish is absolutely going to be where I'm from. It's South Indian food. So I cannot live without rice for more than a day. I
No,
would say.
one dish. You're going to pick one dish,
So
just one dish.
I would say if I had to pick one dish, it's going to be dosa. This rice crepes. So it's for people who don't know what dosa is. It's a batter made from rice and lentils, and they make like crepes. It's more salty crepe, not a sweet crepe. But you have to have it with it should be crispy thin like wafers, where you have with multiple dips that goes on the side. So the dips is what is going to make this dish very interesting, and it has to be from a South Indian, authentic South Indian place. Otherwise, it's not going to taste good. I can guarantee that. But that's my most favorite food.
You know what? You stole the words out of my mouth. I'm going to add a couple of more things and maybe even tell people where they could possibly go try out in the US, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to eat the best versions of that, folks, 1 billion of them are made per day, by the way. The actual count is, I think they create 1 billion, and I'm going to say the Tamil version of what Surya just said. Surya said dosa. I'm just going to end that with the one more letter, like dosai, which is actually the Tamil
Yes.
version, right?
Yep.
So if you want to have the best ones and you're living in the US, it's a little bit of a challenge. I would say if you want to have the best ones, go to India. If you want to have the best ones, but you don't find yourself in India, go to Singapore. Singapore's got some incredibly phenomenal South Indian food. And if you cannot go to Singapore, I think the closest you can go to is England, like Great Britain, right? UK.
Yep.
The Brits spend a lot of time in India, as we know, and they learn many things Indian. Cooking is one of them, so the dosa is great. But if you have to be in the US, this is going to be a tricky thing. I don't know. Before I answer this question, Surya, if you have to tell people on the East Coast or the West Coast, if they have to go to one part of the country, where would you recommend that they go check this one out?
Okay, I don't think you get the perfect taste like in India, but the closest you can get, at least from my knowledge, is in all the major cities, East Coast and West Coast. You have this chain called A to B. Uh, they have very good dosa with sambar and chutney. But recently, what have started doing is we get this amazing dosa batter from Costco. So I buy the batter and make the sambar and chutney myself, and that's the best I can get.
Okay, you gave an easy answer. So either people love Costco or not so much, but most people love Costco. So I think that's an easy answer, folks. You can go grab it from there. But if you live in the Washington D.C. metro, which some of our audience certainly does, I'm going to give you a very specific recommendation. There's a place called Country Oven in Herndon. They're not a fine dining Indian restaurant, but it does not matter. They actually make incredible food. So if you want to get the whole Indian experience, along with the chaos that generally goes with Indian places, you can check out that place in Herndon. They actually make great food. So again, folks, this conversation was. But again, before I close it, call it wraps. Surya, any closing comments before I call it wraps?
No, I think I would say definitely. You can see, I'm not a good speaker. I always get into trouble with my wife that I'm not able to. She's not able to hold conversation for more than 5 minutes. But you
Oh, this was 2 hours. It's almost 2 hours, so we're
because
good.
it's my passion. The topic was something I really passionate about. So I think passion can take you a long way. So have passion in life and follow it. I think definitely that's going to be success in life. So that's what I want to say to
Oh, great advice. And I can tell people, knowing Surya personally, right, over many years, all of this is, none of it is euphemisms, right? He's as much as a straight shooter as you're going to ever find. I'll promise you that much. So anything he says, please, make sure you follow through on that. You're going to be in good shape. So I will include Surya. I'll find the link to your LinkedIn profile and include it. If there's any other links you want for me to include, I'm happy to do it. Again, folks, just to do a really quick recap, this is Surya Nagarajan, who's a friend of mine. I've known him for many years, who's actually currently doing his master's at Georgia Tech. So you can tell, Georgia Tech, one of those really nice places in data science and AI. So hopefully you can, I'll include the transcript of this conversation as well. So you can go back to doing all of the learnings. And Surya, thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it because a lot of times, I enjoy these conversations. I talk to a lot of the people, but 99% of the time I'm talking to people I've not known up until that point of time. So I enjoy the discovery during the call. But this was a discovery as well because there's many things we've spoken here that we've not spoken outside of this conversation, right? So thanks much. Really appreciate your time, and I'll bring you back hopefully to talk about finance.
Okay, yeah. Thanks so much, Krish. I think this is the best thing I have done in this holiday season. So,
Much
thank you so much.
appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.